we turn our attention to the Cleveland Guardians, and we are happy to be joined by Zack Meisel, Guardians beat reporter for The Athletic. Zach, Josh Bell, a big name free agent signing, struggled, has started to get his stride. How important is that to just kind of set up this offense in this lineup?
Yeah, we can nitpick who's hitting where and not coming through in certain situations and whatever you want. But at the end of the day, you think about a guy who signed a 2-year, $33 million contract to be sort of that linchpin in the middle of the lineup. He's the key to everything, I think. I mean, they spent all winter, all spring talking about how he'd be the perfect protection for Jose Ramirez. He's a switch hitter. He's a guy who historically makes a lot of contact, doesn't strike out a ton, but hits for some power. And so I can only imagine in his mind feeling pressure to perform when you get off to such a slow start in front of new teammates and a new fan base. And I think it's easy to see that, right? He just looks like a guy who has the weight of the world on his shoulders, and I think you can tell his first home run, his first hit in a key situation, those things help ease the mind so much, and then he can get back to doing what he knows he can do.
And his struggles, you can tell he's swinging at pitches he normally doesn't. He's getting fooled a little, which tells me he's not seeing the ball real well, and then he's falling behind and trying to do. You could see what was going on with his at-bats.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the metrics and they'll show he's hit a ton of ground balls. It feels like every time you watch him at the plate, it's chops one to second, chops one to first, and that's not who he is. And in talking to him and talking to the hitting coaches, it's pretty simple. It's that he got off to a slow start, and then you have this mindset of, I really need a hit here. So you're defensive and you're late. That's what happens. It's just you're waiting for them to make the perfect pitch to you instead of being the aggressor and dictating the action. So when you're late, that's why you're not making good contact. You are chopping the ball to first or second base, and you get the results that we've seen.
Starting pitching. Somehow they're finding a way to get through it, but McKenzie, 60-day IL to open up a roster space. Savali, 15-day IL. How much of a concern is it?
Yeah, they need to figure out the best short-term plan and the best long-term plan and do those things align. And if they do align, it probably has something to do with some of the top prospects they've got sitting at AA and AAA. But I think for the time being, at this moment, they're just sort of trying to piece it together any way they can. And I don't think they anticipated having Peyton Battenfield make his major league debut against the New York Yankees 2 weeks into the season, but you can't script these things. So they have depth. Like, it would have been much easier to deal with these injuries in June than in early April. I think that's sort of the quandary they find themselves in, is just, can they just get by for a few weeks with some of these fringe roster type starters before they call up their top prospects, or do they need to make a decision sooner than they might be comfortable doing? Those are the questions they're going to have to answer, and the way they answer those questions is the performance by Hunter Gaddis, Peyton Battenfield, those guys. So it's going to be fluid for a while.
And the top prospects you're talking about, Logan Allen, not the guy that was here before, the younger one, is doing really well in AAA, as is Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams at AA. All three of those guys are pitching lights out. Let's talk a little bit about Battenfield, though. It seems like any time they dip down into the minors, the guy they bring up isn't overmatched at the major league level. How impressive is that, and how do they continue to do that?
I mean, it has to be the lifeblood of your organization when you don't spend as much money and you're not leaning on free agency. You need a really healthy player development system, and they've done that. I mean, they have a consensus top 3 or 4 farm system in baseball, and more than that, it's always the names that you don't see on those lists, right? Like Shane Bieber was not a top prospect. Savali and Plesac came up in 2019 and carried the rotation for a little bit. Those guys weren't top 100 guys. So, yeah, it's an impressive feat to know when to call up the right guy at the right time. And they seem to have a really good handle on that. And they'll tell you it's just collaboration. It's people in different departments looking out for the best interests of the player and the best interests of the team and making sure that that aligns. And you don't need to hear me try to analyze it because the results speak for themselves, right?
It's the sign of a well-run organization, though. And, say whatever you want. This is a organization that develops young pitchers like no other organization.
Yeah, and they're trying to do the same thing with hitters, and I think you're starting to see that. And in a similar fashion, think about last year and the hitter like Oscar Gonzalez, and you have to give credit to the players. They're not just sprinkling fairy dust on everybody and turning them into capable major leaguers, but Will Brennan coming up last September, and it was a very short sample, but he looked like he belonged. And you see now, he's going to go through some growing pains, but this isn't all bright and shiny and new to him. They've done things in a methodical way, and I think they just have a good handle on the timing element. And I think sometimes, if you rush a guy too quickly, it could be both damaging for the team and the player.
Let's talk a little bit about the bullpen. It's been lights out. It's had to be because of the challenges with the starting pitching. Some concerns there. They're throwing a lot.
They've had the most innings pitched by their bullpen of any team, and that's not a stat you want to lead the league in, whether it's mid-April or mid-September. So part of it is they need their starting pitching to go a little deeper to take some of the pressure off. But it's like last year where it seems like every game that they win by 1 or 2 runs. So you're going to be leaning on Karinchak and Stefan and Clase, and you just don't want to burn those guys too early. You want to get them in a good rhythm, and I think the thing that helps them is like Nick Sandlin has pitched in big moments, and Eli Morgan has pitched in big moments, and when you can trust the guys that you have to turn to on days when maybe Clase's not available, Karinchak's not available, that's what makes a really good bullpen, having that depth. They should get Sam Hentges back pretty soon. That'll help too. So, yeah, bullpen's another strength.
Let's talk a little bit about the lineup. Stephen Kwan, that's a guy that kind of burst onto the scene, could have got more votes than he did for Rookie of the Year. He was that good as a leadoff hitter and kind of set the stage for this offense. And he looks like he's right back at it.
It's unbelievable. He didn't look like a rookie last year.
Right.
And so it's his skill set is just so unique, and the way he approaches every at-bat, he looks like he's been in the majors for 10 years and that he knows every single thing the pitcher's trying to do to him. It doesn't seem to matter if it's a lefty on the mound or a righty on the mound, a guy throwing 100 or a guy throwing junk. He's just going to give you a really good at-bat. And, he's so good at he has such a good handle of the strike zone, such elite contact ability. It's, if you're drawing up the ideal leadoff hitter, he's got a lot of those qualities.
Let's talk a little bit about Miles Straw, too. That's a guy that, didn't hit for an average last year, is hitting really well this year. And I thought he would hit well. He's doing even a little bit better. Looks like he's changed his approach a little bit.
Yeah, they wanted him to be more aggressive. It's actually similar to Josh Bell in some ways, where last year got off to a good start, had a good April, and then things went south, and it became, again, that mentality of just trying to survive instead of dictating the action. And you can fall into a deep abyss when you do that, and it's just so hard to crawl out of. And then you start thinking, all right, if I make this adjustment, if I tinker this way and this way and this way, and next thing you know, you're just completely lost. And he's similar to Kwan in that really good handle of the strike zone, elite contact ability. But if you're going to be overly patient and just go up hoping to draw a walk, you're going to fall behind 0-2. And that's what happened last year. His pitchers just started throwing him nothing but strikes, and he was being too passive. So he's been a little more aggressive so far this year. And the big thing for him, no one needs him to hit 320. You don't need him to get on base 45% of the time. If he could just be an okay hitter, just not a black hole in the 9 spot, he's going to steal 40 bases. So that's a huge asset to have in the bottom of your lineup.
And him 9, Kwan 1, if I'm a pitcher, I don't want to deal, or a catcher, I don't want to deal with that.
Right. In today's game, it's so critical to have pitchers who just rack up strikeouts so that you can get out of those jams. Well, if Straw gets on base, odds are he's going to steal second, and then you got to deal with Quan with a runner in scoring position. That's not fun.
All right, before I let you go, Andres Jimenez, they signed him to a 7-year contract. He's been better. They thought he was going to be good. I don't know if they knew he would be this good. And outlawing the shift, how important is that defense at second base? And do you think that changes the thinking? Maybe he's better off staying there as opposed to switching to shortstop.
I think it's a good luxury to have. I mean, he can probably be Gold Glove caliber at either. And yeah, at one point, right around the time he signed the extension, I tried to poke a hole in his game somewhere. I just looked at all of his splits, and he's good against lefties, he's good against righties, he's good on the road, he's good at home, he's good against, he's good at day games, good during night games, good in a dome, good outside. You can't find anywhere. He's just so consistent across the board. That's hard to find. Especially it feels like Cleveland has platooned several spots in their lineup year after year after year. And to have a guy like that who you can hit second, you can hit fourth, doesn't matter where he's hitting because he's going to produce. And that's just such a luxury to have. And I know he's thrilled to have that contract. I think the team is going to be thrilled with how that contract shakes out in the end, too.